began to head back to my room, ready for what was going to happen tomorrow. Everything would be decided then.
You cruel, selfish bastard!
Oh. A shout, however, interrupted my journey to my room. I froze in place before turning my head toward a door that was barely open a small crack. It was the door leading to the Grand Hall, Saero's training room. Why was Diana there, though? And who was she yelling at? I wonder who. I peeked inside to see Diana glaring into the darkness with her arms crossed tightly over her chest. As I squinted, trying to see what she was glaring at, I silently gasped. Saero. Saero was kneeling in the dark before his mistress, his head bowed low in shame. When did he return? More than that, why was he keeping his head down? Was he not successful in his mission? He did say if nothing went wrong, he'd be back just before the war.
Where in the 7 planes of hell have you been, Saero?
My lady,
You left the castle with no notification or warning, and you activated your damn holy magic to deny me the right to summon you to my side. How dare you!
If you would let me...
And now you suddenly waltz back into the castle with a smile on your face as if you had gone out and killed the Demon Lord himself. Explain yourself!
Staring at Diana, I could see her face burning as red with rage. Her cheeks, however, were glistening as rogue tears ran down them. Saero kept his head down, but continued to plead with Diana.
My lady, I was on a personal quest. I had to retrieve something I believed to be important, and it was incredibly selfish of me to do so. I'm sorry, but I needed to complete this task before we went into battle.
You placed this quest over your duty to me?
Only this once, my lady. It needed to be done immediately, and I greatly apologize for doing so, but I promise my journey bore results.
Nice.
Do you not realize how worried you made me? I have barely rested these past 3 nights because of you.
Nah. I stared at Diana, wide-eyed in shock, as did Saero. She was concerned about him? Saero seemed to be surprised as well, eyes wide and staring at the ground. However, he didn't lift his head, most likely still following a demand previously given to him to keep his head down.
My lady, I'm deeply sorry.
Sorry doesn't make this better. What if you were killed? What if I was killed? You are supposed to be by my side at all times. You broke the vow that you made not only to me, but to my family, that you would stay with me and protect me.
My lady, please!
Enough! I've heard enough!
Oh, good grief. Diana turned away from Saero, looking to the ground and clenching her eyes shut. More rogue tears ran down her face as she gritted her teeth. Saero finally lifted his face, shocked to see her back instead of her face.
You are dismissed. You are no longer permitted to be in the same room as me until further notice.
Oh, dear.
My lady.
I said you are dismissed, Saero.
Saero.
Ooh.
You do not have permission to use my...
Whoa! All of a sudden, Saero lunged forward and wrapped his arms around Diana's arms and chest, hugging her body to his tightly, and she released a tearful gasp of surprise. Saero buried his face in her shoulder as Diana stared wide-eyed at the wall ahead of her. Diana froze in his arms as Saero clutched her body to his, locking it against his chest.
Do not send me away from you. I broke my vow, yes, but I did it for a reason. I cannot bear the thought of being separated from you. Not after what I have discovered.
I stared, feeling my heart clench. It was like watching a romantic drama where the two leads were either going to break up or confess their love for each other. The air was tense and full of both anticipation and fear, and I wished for a bowl of popcorn right now. Diana remained frozen in Saero's arms as he lifted his head and gently relaxed his embrace around her.
Saero, I've brought you something.
You... What?
Diana finally began to move, slowly turning around in Saero's arms to look up at him in confusion. Saero frowned, seeing her tearful and red face, and gently brought a hand up to her cheek. He gingerly wiped the tears from Diana's eyes with the back of his fingers before cupping her face. Diana didn't lean in, but she didn't object to it.
I've brought you something very important. It may not seem important to this war, but it's important to me.
My heart caught itself in my throat. Did he? Saero released Diana's cheek before waving his hand between their faces, black and purple mist forming in the air, shifting into something small. As it finally materialized, Diana gasped, and I silently echoed her reaction. There it is! In the air floated a beautiful golden rose on a dark green thornless stem. It had mostly blossomed, showing its beautiful petals and glowing softly in between Saero and Diana. It slowly turned in the air, showing Diana all of its magnificence.
The golden rose. A symbol and proof of my love for you, Saero. I've wanted to retrieve it for you for the longest time, and now I finally have.
I'm so glad he didn't die on this quest.
Saero.
I love you so much. You have given my life so much meaning, and I have sworn my life to protecting you. Saero, you are the most precious and the most beautiful woman to ever grace the 5 worlds, and being with you every day fills me with such joy. If this is what it takes to prove my love for you, then I will happily give you thousands of golden roses for as long as I have breath. But please, know now that my feelings for you are pure and true.
I felt like crying as I watched the scene unfold. Diana was stunned, streams of rogue tears once again falling down her cheeks as she stared at Saero. The rose slowly lowered to float between their chests as if it were patiently waiting for something to happen.
You are my everything. My moon, my stars, my world. Please, Saero, do not send me away from you.
Saero, you idiot.
Saero let out a soft chuckle as Diana wiped her eyes with a very, very small smile.
Insult me all you like. I deserve it for leaving your side. However, now that I've proven my love to you, I must know the truth. Do you love me?
Ooh, moment of truth time. Diana looked up at Saero as her smile grew ever so slightly. Something about Diana changed as she looked up at him. Her eyes seemed to be lighter and full of joy. My heart melted at the way they looked at each other. Saero watched Diana with curiosity, and Diana gazing at Saero in warm elation. Diana lifted her hand to the rose and gently cupped it underneath its petals, making Saero look down and gasp. In Diana's hands, the rose fully bloomed, revealing its innermost gold, almost white petals. Saero looked back up at Diana, seeing her cry joyful tears and fighting back tears of his own.
I do, Saero. More than you could ever know. I was just...
Saero gently shushed her, cupping her cheek gently and wiping the tears away with his thumb. For the first time, at least from what I had seen, Diana nuzzled into his hand, closing her eyes. She looked so innocent and pure with Saero now. Was this the real Diana? We will never know.
Whatever fear you had, let it go. I swear to never hurt you and to love you until time stands still.
I stared, teary-eyed, as Saero gently took the rose from between them and placed it in Diana's hair behind her ear. Diana waited until he finished before reaching up and wrapping her arms around his neck.
I love you too, Saero.
At last, Saero wrapped his arms around Diana's waist and pulled her close as they both leaned in and finally kissed. It was a magical sight to behold. Their love echoed in the kiss, making each other almost glow within the room. I felt my cheeks warm in an uncontrollable blush as I watched. Leave them alone. You know where this is going. Yeah, they needed their privacy. Who knew where that kiss was going to go anyway? I came and I accomplished what I came to accomplish, so my work here is done. You guys have fun. I smiled, joyful for what had happened between them, before I turned on my heel and began to walk towards my room. I finally returned to our room and flopped under the bed, letting the events of my time in the Abyssal Plains replay in my mind. I had been trapped here, and soon enough I was about to go marching into battle against the Demon Lord for my freedom. The more I thought about it, the more surreal the feeling became. I was going to be in a room, meeting a powerful adversary face to face, and set myself free of the curse he brought down upon me, and also now upon Matthew. What made my head spin was the fact that Matthew had been under the influence of his father and mother's control. It was beyond imaginary, yet it happened. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time I had no choice but to come to terms with it. As Matthew entered the room at last, I smiled and stood, walking over and wrapping my arms around him as he returned my embrace.
You're the best person in the entire universe. You know that?
And you are too, Matthew. We held each other, locked in silence and unable to say anything more. We had been in a heavy predicament, and we escaped. Sure, the Demon Lord may have still had some sway over Matthew, but it wasn't enough to control him now. Right? All we could do in the moment was hold each other and listen to our synchronized heartbeats. As the thought of tomorrow danced in my head, I began to fear it even more. Was I ready to go into battle? Was Matthew? Were any of us, for that matter? We were about to walk into the final battle of a world war. Would we survive? Would I live to see Matthew afterward and feel his embrace again? Tomorrow brought too many questions to think about, and I became frustrated and scared. So we did the only logical thing that we always do, which is make love to our incubus. Aw, sweet little incubus. I needed to hold him and treat the night like it was the last night of the world. Tomorrow was unpredictable, but tonight was guaranteed. I guided Matthew back and sat on the bed, looking up at him before slowly easing out of my shirt, locking eyes with him as I slowly began to strip for him. His breath became slightly hitched as he watched, obeying my silent demand to keep his eyes on me. As I finally became bare from the waist up, I pressed my hands onto the bed and slid back, letting my legs up onto the mattress and holding them out for him to do the honors. I tilted my head, letting him get the picture as I dangled my legs out for him. Matthew let out a shy sigh before nodding and biting his lower lip and crawling up onto the bed, grasping my clothes and sliding them off of my legs, leaving me completely bare for him. As he tossed my clothes to the side, I settled back onto the bed and held out my arms to him. Come here. Obediently, Matthew followed, kneeling between my legs and pressing his hands on both sides of my body, staring deep into my eyes and making me become lost in his gorgeous blue irises. I slowly danced my arms up over his shoulders and felt his skin slightly heat up beneath my hands and making me slightly smirk up at my loving incubus. I'm all yours. I want you to take all of me. The carnal desire that flashed in his eyes made my body shudder even before his enthrallment began to settle into my body and completely encase my core in desire.
I don't deserve you.
Our words became muffled, lost in the air as he pressed his lips hard against mine and quickly began to discard his jeans, joining me in my bare exposure, and taking in my scent as I relished feeling his skin against mine. However, what surprised me was him turning me over and wrapping his arms around my waist, hugging me back against his chest. I took the hint to grip onto the bedpost and arch my back for him, impatient. Then, pleasure racked through me and I became a moaning mess in his arms. The bed rocked hard against the wall as I dug my nails into the wood and took in his love with our lovemaking. My heart sung arias of love as my core screamed songs of ecstasy for the man taking me. My goodness. This was indeed our last night in the demon world, so we would relish the feeling of magic and lust melding around us as we soared into euphoria. Even as we angled ourselves to lock lips, our inhibitions became lost in the air. We became rough, rapid, and roared in the pleasure that rushed through us, quickly washing through our peaks once, twice, 3 times. We didn't care to count farther, losing our senses within our arms. As our ride eventually had to end, we settled onto the mattress, panting and gasping. The natural musk of our sweet sweat danced in the air as we slowly cuddled together and relaxed into the sheets beneath our bodies. I was dizzy, swimming in oceans of joy and love within Matthew's arms, causing me to nuzzle my head beneath his and kiss over his Adam's apple. I'll always be here, in your arms.
And I'll be here in yours. I promise.
A sense of hope and courage wrapped around us that night, laced with our undying commitment for each other. We would survive. We would be okay. I felt safe in Matthew's arms, and I'm sure he felt safe in mine. We would return to the human world and be okay. Tomorrow would decide everything. The siege is here.
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
I know the drill.
No way!
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off. When you get to the castle, I will be fighting.
She's been taught well. Let her prove herself when the time comes.
I forgot that my trainer had to say something. I was nervous, but... Alright, Matthew, what have you got to say about this?
Man, well, I'm nervous. How about you?
Huh. Yeah. Matthew wrapped an arm around my waist and turned my body to him, hugging me closely.
Hey, everything will be okay, alright?
I listened to him speak before nodding, taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. We would be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right. The time is right. Oh yeah. Tell me what she said. What is she saying, Matthew?
She said that we're all fighting for freedom and that she'll lead us to it.
Is that it?
Pretty much. Everything else she's saying is just to rile everyone up for battle.
Oh, Matthew. Trying to keep me innocent. Okay. Let's go into battle.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
Are we good with our sneak attack plan?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush nip at my heels, pushing me forward. My fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walking at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost.
You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So, this is it.
Remember your surroundings and protect each other.
Be careful, alright? Make sure you stay safe.
Princess, brother, we'll see you in the end.
We have faith in you. You'll make it there, and we'll return to the human world soon.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, alright? Right in the head.
Righto.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
We'll win this. We know we can.
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
I smiled despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked into the tree line, took a breath and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. Alright, let's see how this goes. The journey was surprisingly fast-going through the trees. The sound of the war crashed beside us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. Before I could, however, I skidded to a stop, seeing imps appear from the distance and rush towards us. As my incubus came up behind me and spotted the imps, he prepared himself to attack, but I placed my hand on his arm, stopping him. I got this. I walked forward and formed my weapon, letting it shine brightly in the darkness of the forest around us and temporarily blinding the imps ahead of us. My hands formed the guitars I had trained with, feeling their weight in my hands as the blade glimmered a lavender glow of energy. I swung my hands a bit, recalling the reach and balance of the weapons in my hands as I prepared to attack. The imps, who were blinded by my light only for a moment, looked back at me and stared as I took note of the weapon I had possessed. With a battle cry, I rushed forward, taking advantage of their blank state. Gah! I arched my body to the side and jabbed forward, running my blade through the face of an imp before slicing through it and spinning around to slash through the imp beside him, opening 2 large gashes in his chest through his ribs and lungs. The imps fell as the others became shell-shocked at the sight. It must have been a big surprise to see a human cut down 2 with their number, but I wasn't in the mood to let them recover. My body quickly turned in front of another imp as I swung my weapon once again, slicing open his throat. With a bubbly cry, he fell as well as I rushed forward again towards the castle uncaring. The remaining imps began to quake and step back in fear, most likely never expecting to see a human decimate their companions. I wasn't so friendly and merciful, especially in this war, as I lunged forward again and skewered through another imp, hearing the steel of my weapon breaking through his body. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, followed as I continued forward, fighting through every imp that came in our way. I had lost count of how many crossed me, but I didn't care. Aw, Matthew's not gonna say anything. Darn. All I cared about was getting to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there were a slew of dead bodies behind me. I stood at the tree line, panting and feeling waves of adrenaline and lack of energy run through my veins. I panted for air, slowly focusing on calming down as my energy quickly depleted from its adrenaline-filled high. The weapon in my hand quickly vanished, no longer able to maintain its form without my energy. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Are you alright?
Huh? I looked up to see Matthew staring down at me, fear and concern dancing in his eyes. We were safe for the moment, so I merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you, like you protect me. Matthew let out a small laugh before pressing his forehead against mine.
What would I ever do without you?
I hugged him back, feeling relief that we had finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, Matthew lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Come on! You ready?
I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go finish this. With that, Matthew and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. We quickly rushed into the Demon Lord's castle, desperate to get inside and aid Diana in fighting the Demon Lord. As we rushed in, however, we stopped to see Diana and the Demon Lord standing off. Diana had her saber tightly gripped in one hand while she glared daggers into her opponent. The Demon Lord carried a large smirk on his face as he stood on the dais of his throne. As Matthew and I entered, his smirk grew that much wider, and then he took control of Matthew and me and Diana had to fight them both. Oh, it's the mom! It's the merm! Well, 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 what do you know? Wow, Matthew really took after his mom in the looks department. Matthew, however, seemed to care more about the woman kneeling on the ground beside the Demon Lord with her hands on her knees frowning at him.
Mother! Ah, there he is, my son.
Mm-hmm.
Get him out of here now!
Crap. What? I stared at Diana as she continued to face the Demon Lord. What was she talking about? The Demon Lord simply laughed and pointed at Matthew.
Well, what are you waiting for? Claim your throne.
What are you talking?
At that moment, Matthew's body pulsed with a faint blue light. He curled over his body and gripped his head, digging his fingers into his hair. We didn't get rid of all of it. Matthew? Matthew, what's wrong?
Get him out of here!
I rushed to Matthew, now terrified to what was happening. Before I could place my hands on his shoulders, however, Matthew vanished into a dissipating afterimage. Huh? The sound of steel clashing caused me to turn and see Matthew and Diana clashing swords. Diana gritted her teeth as Matthew glared into her gaze.
Damn it, fool!
I said, take your throne!
Matthew's body pulsed again, forcing him to push against Diana and send her flying back to stand beside me. As Diana reached me, she moved a hand in front of me, blocking me from Matthew. Matthew! Matthew looked up at me and Diana, his expression twitching from trying to maintain control of himself. His eyes flickered between blue and gold as he gripped to his sword tightly. I wasn't afraid of him, so I stepped out from behind Diana and walked towards him, holding my hands out. Matthew, it's okay. You can overcome this.
Stay back.
I ignored him and continued to walk forward, needing him to be okay. Whatever spell the Demon Lord had on him wasn't powerful enough to consume him. I needed to break its entire hold on him once and for all. Fight it, Matthew. You are strong enough to beat this. Matthew dropped his sword and gripped his head, digging his fingers into his hair and curling over himself. He scratched his nails over his horns, angry and aggravated.
I don't want to hurt you!
You won't, Matthew. I know you won't. At last, I stopped in front of Matthew's body. I gently tilted his head up and cupped his face in both of my hands. His face was warm from the mental struggle as his eyes flickered between blue and gold. I trusted him, though. Matthew loved me, and his love would crash through the spell. Let me help you. I quickly leaned in and kissed Matthew's head, making him gasp and freeze within my arms. I felt myself slowly drain of my remaining energy, but I didn't care. Matthew needed it more than me, and if I was able to free him, then I would. The air around us became lighter and easier to breathe, even as we separated. I stared into Matthew's eyes, seeing him stare wide-eyed at me in shock. They were completely painted in gold, causing my heart to tighten for a moment. Did he break it?
Enough of this! Kill her!
I thought the Demon Lord was being awfully patient there. As the Demon Lord's voice reverberated in the air, a large sword embedded itself into the Demon Lord's stomach. Mother Dearest?
What the?
No, it was Matthew. He's so powerful. Matthew looked back to his father, his hand extended out towards him as his eyes finally regained their ocean blue color. My heart began to jump in ecstatic joy. Matthew had broken free from the spell his father trapped him under. Thank God.
How can this be? Impossible!
You expected me to follow your orders, you sick bastard!
I stared wide-eyed as Matthew turned around and summoned a new weapon into his fist. A dark blue aura emanated from his body, flickering like flames as he stared the Demon Lord down.
You will never convince me to kill the ones that I love.
Unless it's a bad ending.
Insolent brat!
The Demon Lord gritted his teeth before sharply extending his hand towards Matthew's mother. We could only watch as red ethereal chain shot out from the Demon Lord's back towards Azera, wrapping around her form and crushing her. I can't believe Angel knows his mom's name.
No!
Stop it!
Your energy, woman!
Faster than we could react, red lightning began to surround and shock Azera's bound form. The red energy traveled through the chains holding her hostage and into the Demon Lord's body, making him glow a terrifying blood color. A large sword formed in the Demon Lord's hand, arcing with red lightning. Matthew's first sword, which was impaled in the Demon Lord's stomach, crumbled into ash and fell to the floor, leaving a black scar mark. The Demon Lord's eyes, however, fixed themselves on Matthew's form with deadly intent.
I'll kill you!
Faster than I had thought imaginable, Matthew stepped forward and vanished, only to reappear in front of the Demon Lord with his sword held high. As Matthew swung his weapon down, however, the Demon Lord held out his hand and forced Matthew back with a burst of red energy. Matthew skidded backwards, crossing his sword over his body to shield himself from the blast. As the energy faded, the Demon Lord's lips curled into a crazed smirk.
Then come, little boy! Show me what you can—
And that was your last mistake. The Demon Lord stopped, staring at Matthew as his body froze. I hitched my breath. What was happening?
Enough.
Everyone turned their heads towards Matthew's mother, seeing her hold the chain that connected her and the Demon Lord in a tight grip. Her body was shaking, but the rage in her eyes could make any demon fall to their knees.
I will not let you hurt my son!
Mother! Before the Demon Lord could turn and do something, a large bolt of blue energy shot through the chain and into the Demon Lord's back, causing him to arch back and scream in pain. Sounds painful. Matthew grabbed onto me and covered me with his body as Diana blocked her face with her arms. The magic was so powerful, the room began to shake violently. I watched from the cracks of Matthew's arms as dark black and red energy traveled down the chain from the Demon Lord into Azera's body, making her body pulse and grow in power. The Demon Lord, however, became weaker and surprisingly became much more frail.
You are my—
I am not yours any longer!
Another heavy blue bolt rushed through the chain and into the Demon Lord's body, causing a splash of blood to jet from the Demon Lord's mouth. Matthew finally stepped away from me and began to walk at the Demon Lord, forming a sword in his hand. As he did, the Demon Lord collapsed onto the floor on his hands and knees and growled animalistically at his son.
It's over.
What surprised me was the smirk that graced the Demon Lord's bleeding lips and the chuckle that erupted from it.
You are indeed the perfect son.
Oh no. I don't like the sound of that. Without another word, Matthew raised his sword and rammed it into the Demon Lord's neck, effectively pinning him to the ground and killing him. A bubbly cry of pain barely escaped the Demon Lord's mouth as his eyes glazed over, dead. It's too simple, though. I don't buy this. I can't buy it. My heart felt major relief, shaking a bit as a weight lifted off of my soul. The Demon Lord was dead at last. I was free and we could go home now. Diana spat to the side, catching my attention.
To think his own wife and son would be the ones to kill him. What have I been doing for the past 10 years?
Oh, poor Diana. I couldn't stop the amused smile on my face as Diana walked up beside me, rubbing her neck in irritation. You weakened him a bit for them, I'm sure. Diana rolled her eyes as Matthew finally rushed up the days towards his mother.
Mother!
Aw, they're so cute.
Saero!
Aw. His mother wrapped her arms around Matthew, squeezing him to her. Matthew hugged her back just as tightly and kind, joyous to see her freed from the Demon Lord's power.
I'm right here. It's gonna be okay.
I was beyond happy for Matthew. His mother was safe now, and the Demon Lord was defeated. I could feel some sort of weight lift off of my shoulders, knowing that the curse had been broken with his death. I smiled as I watched Zazera cry in Matthew's arms. Before I could step forward to join them, however, Diana placed her hand in front of me, glaring ahead of her. I looked up at her with a very surprised face. Diana?
Stay back.
Yeah, I'll do that. I nodded, unsure of why she wanted me to stay away. However, the intense expression on her face sent fearful cheers down... Fearful cheers, yes. What's a fearful cheer? Bleh. Fearful chills down my spine as she scowled at Matthew and his mother. Was something seriously wrong? Yeah, don't you think this was a bit easy, Angel?